How we doing, everybody? Thanks for coming out on a cold night. We appreciate you all getting here and we look forward to having a real casual conversation with you about kind of where we're at with the Wilkins project and some things that we're thinking. For those of you who I haven't met and don't know overly well, my name's Mike Berry. I'm the superintendent of schools in SU 39. I'm in the middle of my second year, and just a lot of pride and gratefulness to be able to do this job, do the work in this community, work with the people that I get to work with, and look forward to talking a little bit more about this important work that we're doing. We have here tonight with us Steve Chamberlain, Assistant Superintendent, Kathleen Murphy, Principal of Clark Wilkins, Shannon Gascon, and Tom Gauthier, Chair and Co-Chair of the Amherst School Board, well versed into it. Shannon and I were talking, like, she's been kind of at this for 7 years with this work. That's quite some time, and a lot of you have been involved with this for quite some time. So we appreciate it. A couple things. We're gonna take questions and have like a conversation kind of at the end, of our presentation, and then if you have to use a restroom, if you're not familiar with the place, out here to the right, down there, there's a restroom if you need it. But with that said, we'll just kind of turn it over to Tom and Shannon to welcome people, and Kathleen and Steve are going to do most of the heavy lifting, I think, this evening. So,
okay, thank you, Mike, and thank you everybody for coming, and for folks that are online, thank you for joining us as well. I know it's a cold night. I would have rather be online as well, but manned it out with 3 layers on. So this has been I don't know if it's a passion project now. There's a lot of passion involved in it, both on the good and the bad side, I would say. But for Shannon and I, and I know Victoria's here as well, sitting in the crowd since probably 2018, 2019 timeframe. Jeannie, who's out there, has been working on this much longer than any of us have lived in town. So this has been a ongoing project, maybe projects for the town of Amherst for a long time, at least on the Amherst School Board side of things. The Amherst School District, Sauhegan is a different can of worms. So really glad that you can make it out here tonight. This is the first of 3 nights that we'll have for information, and a little bit different than what we've done in the past. We've done these nights, we've actually done in-home visits the last couple of years, and done some different ways to organize this, where we focused on overall projects, going to people's houses or having meetings at the library to answer any questions about the entire project from soup to nuts, curriculum, building, financing, everything. So a little bit different this year is to focus more on those experiences and those particular issues that are of note, things that maybe we don't talk about all the time. So we do have 2 more sessions coming up where they're informational sessions, one of them on safety and security, for example, tonight on what it's like working and learning in a building like this compared to what a modern building offers. So that's really the main difference in what these informational sessions are. Monday night, we do have our public hearing for the bond, the actual project. So Shannon and I will go through in excruciating detail in a 2-hour window, all of the details of the history of this project, what it's looked like the last couple of years in the ballot, how it's modified, or how it's been modified, and what we're presenting again for the second time this year, and what those details are. So feel free to join us Monday night at Sauhegan. You can also join online as well and view that public hearing, the bond hearing, but it will be much more in depth in terms of every aspect and every detail on Monday night. Before I give it to Shannon for any comments, I do want to recognize Greg Fritz, who's in the back in the blue jacket there. Greg is also one of our board members, but he's just in the back there, as we only have a few seats up here. So, and Shannon and I drew the short straws. So with that, I will let Shannon speak to anything, and then we can turn it over to Steve and Kathleen to take us through the curriculum and the program.
Yeah, great. Well, I just welcome. Thank you all for being here, like Tom said, on this cold night. And we're excited, for you to learn more about what it's like to experience a day in the life in this building. So no one can tell that story better than Dr. Murphy, our principal here, and Assistant Superintendent Chamberlain. So without further ado.
Nice.
Thank you.
Well, thanks. I really appreciate everybody coming. It's
Sir, Steve, can I interrupt you for 1 second? Am I in anybody's way if I sit here? Do you need me to move? Can you see the screen okay?
You're good. Thanks, Steve.
so this is my 4th year in SAU 39, and this is the 4th time something's gone into the warrant. My 2nd year, I was interim soup, We spent a lot of time on the project. I really enjoyed the work, and this is the process that communities take. It's not, I'm never discouraged. Each year it's got a little bit closer. This is New Hampshire school funding, the building aid controversy, and also this is the process. And communities are successful. Allenstown, Bow, Hopkinton, Newmarket, Salem, some with building aid, some without. So this is the process that the communities in New Hampshire undertake. In the old days, building aid was an entitlement. If you passed it, you got it. That changed 2008, 2009, where then it's now a finite amount, and that there's a little bit more competitive, and we certainly will pursue any avenue we can, but this is where we are. Years ago, as Tom said, we did nights on every aspect. We did a financing night, we did an accessibility night, we did night we really are focused on 3 topics for this month. One is we're talking, what's it like to work and learn in the current Wilkins to what the new building could look like. So we're gonna talk about being a student and talk about being a teacher. 2 weeks, we're gonna talk about how this really can impact the entire community. We'll mention a little bit tonight, but we'll dig in on partnerships, on why this project can really be a benefit for the entire community. And then the last one we'll talk very specifically, because as Tom said, questions came up about how do you actually phase a project with students in the building? There were some concerns, and we want to address that completely. I worked in a school district that built while school is in session, but we'll bring the people in to talk about those things. But tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about current life as a student and teacher, administrator, support staff. And then we're also going to say what it looks like in the future. I hope that's okay. Really, thanks for coming. As you hear Kathleen and Thomas Shanway and Mike and I, as we talk about, listen for some key words, because what happens in the new building, in the renovated, expanded building, you're going to hear about how accessibility changes. That's a significant part of this project, is accessibility. You're going to hear about congestion changes. Significantly, the congestion in this building changes. You're going to hear about an administrator who spends a lot of time juggling things to find spaces. That's going to be a change in the new building. Keyword, and anytime you're building now in school design, and Banwell talks about this, you're going to try and create flexible spaces. Flexibility is the key in building new schools, designing them so they can meet the various needs of our kids. So you're going to hear about that. There is more space, there's increased space, there's increasing. So this will be better. Life will be better. We're also, and this is where Kathleen's leadership comes in really strong, we're going to look at a developmentally designed based on today's research and today's students. Okay, it's a significant upgrade based on what we know about current architecture. We're going to spend some time about dignity, about this project treats every student, every faculty member with dignity. And yes, to be honest, you look in the eye, I can't say that's true right now, today, in this current building, that we treat every student with dignity. We're also going to talk about how this impact of this building creates a calmer school because of the space and the design of 2 floors and diversity in the population. We're also going to hear about collaboration, how about this building will promote and ease, and the proximity research about when you put 2 people or people close together, collaboration automatically occurs. This takes advantage of the proximity principle in this design, that when we have, and you're going to hear about entire 4th grade coming in, and how that proximity piece, the whole is greater than sum of its parts, for the first time in a long time, the entire 4th grade will be together. And that proximity increases collaboration. You'll hear about that. And you'll hear a lot about how the environment is what you call the 3rd teacher or the 2nd, something like that. That was a quote from Kathleen. You'll hear about that too. So as you hear us talk about these experiences as student and staff, try and listen for those words, because that's the entirety of this, is we're going to make all these improvements by this project. Is that okay? Anything else there?
No,
Yeah,
I think you set the
okay.
stage well for us, Steve.
So we're going to talk about, from the very beginning, about the student experience. And actually, we're going to talk about this more in 2 weeks, about how the drop-off changes, but the experience for the entire community changes with a new design. So yesterday, I had a meeting, 8 o'clock at the Brick, and I was coming by, I was stopped at 7:46. 7:46 is after the scheduled start time of the school. There were 18 cars still in the parking lot, all the way down towards the Brick at 7:46. And so my year as interim soup, when I was looking at an 800 and a 900 kid school and experiencing the drop off, I was skeptical. The biggest elementary school in New Hampshire is Golden Brook and Windham, sorry if I offended anybody, it's Windham. And Roger, our director of facilities, worked in Windham. And so he actually, when he heard I was skeptical about the drop off of an 800 kid school, 5th grade plus, right? We're talking 5th grade plus. Windham is 1,200 kids. Talk to the principal. 1,200 kids, buses and cars, less than 15 minutes, complete drop. Same design, Banwell designed Golden Brook. They designed this, the same 2-lane configuration. So the students won't spend as much time in the car waiting to be dropped off as much time. It immediately, and we increase in, and I know someone's gonna kick me on the table, I love instructional time. By doing this, we've increased instructional time. And every student, one thing I love about this project and these projects is every single student, every single teacher's world gets better. So when they drop off, they'll have multiple entrances and we'll drop off around the building. So the whole sequence about this, and we're going to talk more in depth in 2 weeks about the partnership, but multiple secure entrances so the drop off goes smoother. One of the things that Kathleen and I both, we've talked is we've worked in other schools and other problems. One of the big things, I had just a small 4-classroom addition and the teachers desperately wanted the cubbies in the hall. And that's because the cubbies in the hall means you take your stuff off and you enter the classroom ready to learn. And the classroom, because the educational space in the hallway becomes that stuff. And that's key to create that space in the classroom. So the students take their stuff off in the hall, enter the classroom ready to learn. The classrooms are organized by grade level. And they have next to them, a special ed interventionists are targeted through the group. So that proximical notion, again, increases collaboration. And the classrooms are larger with strong natural light in multiple learning spaces. And that's key in elementary, right? You have, and you can speak more to this because you have the carpet over there and you have, so if you want to just talk briefly
Sure.
about what that looks like.
Yeah, so in an, our classrooms right now, they were designed with a mindset where students were working in desks and in rows oftentimes from the youngest grade level up. And right now in our classrooms, we're using those spaces, but utilizing best practices of small group tables and opportunities for flexible seating. So you'll see even in our library in the back there, there's like an example of soft seating in our classrooms. Our teachers have tables with chairs of different sizes, tables of different sizes spread out across the room, different rug areas so that the students can have spaces for class meetings and collaboration with their peers, and a classroom library space so that a student is able to access text within the classroom in addition to our great school library as a resource too. The notion of the cubbies in the hall, while it may seem small, it's really big for us at an elementary level, especially a school community that promotes students being outside for a really great, especially midday recess. We want kids to be able to bring their snow boots, pack up their gear, be able to easily access it, put it on, and feel comfortable and confident to get outside and enjoy that play space. It can be a challenge in our portable classrooms right now. An example of this is we have a large 15-gallon tub that all of the kids just throw their snow boots in because there isn't a space in the portable classrooms for kids to line up their boots. Other classrooms, the kids are lining their boots up in the hallways. So, sometimes throughout the day, I'll be on my cart heading down the hall and I'll reorganize some boots that have gone astray, just to kind of make sure that the kids have them when they need to get out to play, but that also it doesn't become a, potential safety hazard as people are navigating the building as well. I think the car line is a really important thing to note if you've ever dropped off a student at Wilkins in the morning. It is very busy. We expanded our drop-off time to 25 minutes. So on mornings like today, with a real feel of, I think it was 4 today, we have staff members outside for 25 minutes in the wind, in the cold, taking kids out of cars because we can only allow so many cars off the road into the parking lot, only allow so many cars to unload at the same time safely, walking along the sidewalk and then entering the building. We improved it a little bit by putting staff on duty a few minutes earlier than we had last year, but it is a really long period of time that we're unloading and getting students into the building as well. And we're starting the day right away. Some kids say the pledge in the morning outside as they are walking into the building because the car line is still a little backed up, but we're ready to begin learning in here at 7:50, 7:51.
So calmer, more efficient, more space designed for kids. That's their morning. Midday. One of the things that is critical and Kathleen and I met, and it was one of the first things, and I really appreciate it. Having the gymnasium allows for a student-centered, developmentally appropriate schedule. So that will impact every single student in this building, because right now it's when is the NPR multipurpose room versus the gym. So that is a huge impact on the daily schedule of a youngster, because the schedule can be designed based on student need and not lunchroom availability. So that will impact every single student in this building. Just a reminder, the fifth graders are coming down. So the fifth graders will be here. And when fifth graders come, because it's a different schedule and a different organization, they do get increased of core instructional time right away. So that's more core instructional time for middle school and for the fifth graders. And I don't want people to not understand the impact of 6 or 7 classrooms freed up at the middle school will be huge. There's some program that we can implement closer to what Sauhegan has with the Learning Commons model when we have more space there. So that is a huge piece of, yes, fifth grade comes down, part of the elementary model, and that's research-based, having fifth graders here, but also what it frees up in middle school. So that's a 2-win there. The separate music art classrooms is huge. To honor the arts at the early elementary here with designated space is very important. And we know, like, in the last couple of years, we've had to find space. So this is now designated space, and it won't disrupt or become distracted to core classrooms, because it'll be designated to a space, which is huge. And it will be calmer because students will travel in less congested hallways because of the design of the buildings. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, thank you. I would add a few things to that. The addition of the gymnasium provides a secondary large space for us to group students. So an example of kind of that congestion, chaos at the end of the day right now, we're dismissing buses, 4 or 5 buses at a time to the hallway, calling students from classrooms to line up in a hallway while other students are leaving their classrooms to be dismissed as walkers or car pickups to the multipurpose room. Students kind of lined up in the hallway create that chaotic atmosphere, versus in an ideal situation, we'd have all of those bus students dismissed to that gymnasium while still maintaining the multipurpose room to dismiss the 100 or so students, anywhere between 95 and 120 parent pickups every day to safely get those students out to their vehicles, with our staff. So that is just an example of kind of a little bit of chaos we experience. It kind of looks almost like an airport terminal at the end of the hall there each day around 225 to 240, because here at the elementary level, we account for each student as they're boarding a bus. We don't just say, hey, all the kids that ride bus 10, head on bus 10. We're going to make sure that everyone who needs to be on that bus is on that bus. An example of those music and art classroom spaces, gaining their own space is really important. If you were familiar, last year, a challenge we faced in our building was not having a dedicated music room. Our music teacher taught on the stage in the multipurpose room, while we also had lunches and PE going on the other side. Our schedule was designed to try to minimize that impact, but it really proved to be challenging for the educators and students in the spaces. This year, music is next to a first grade classroom and across the hall from 2 intervention spaces. It's not the most ideal location for a music room. It's great we have a music room in some ways, and we're excited about that. But when it's recorder season in 3rd grade, it can be really hard for that first grade teacher next door who's working on letter identification and letter sounds and phonemic awareness with students. So lots of collaboration, troubleshooting around how to minimize that impact there. So having those dedicated spaces will really let our programs grow to their fullest potential and provide inspiring workspaces for educators. I think that's really important for us as we look to recruit and retain the highest quality educators to work with our students as well.
So that's the experience. So we have a different schedule based on student need because we have more space. We have 5th graders down who are leaders, and we've increased space at the middle school, and we have designated spaces and less congestion. So that's the life of a student for the day. Let's talk a little bit about there's students in need of support, because there's no question that there'll be a significant change in design spaces for students who need additional support. It is a present level of support is what all schools do is you just find space, not intended space. You find the closet, the little space, and you do the very best you can. But now we're talking about designing space. And We've talked a lot about this, that we have multiple interventions going on in the same space, sometimes 4 at once. And that's incredibly distracting to youngsters. We have programs, right? We have state-approved programs for youngsters, keeping them in district, saving an extraordinary amount of money in transportation alone, because otherwise you have to transport youngsters. And the program classrooms include space when some of these students get incredibly dysregulated. There are kids at the time during the school day that have a very difficult time regulating their own actions, their sounds, and their experience. And one of the ways that we support youngsters who are dysregulated is with sensory spaces. We know that we have experts in the field that design plans. And currently, if a youngster becomes dysregulated, to get to that space is walking down a hallway in front of so many other people. And I think if we treat every youngster with dignity, that they need the privacy and they have to go through that in a design space. We're doing the very best we can, and we're trying to support youngsters the very best we can. But designing a space for these youngsters will be an extraordinary experience and a big change. And all just something as simple but really important. Accessibility is really important. We will have fully accessible bathrooms for all students and all faculty. We have, I think, one fully accessible, and it's really not fully, but
And Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but we had to, in the last couple of years, we had to do a special project that's out heating to accommodate this very thing, correct?
And so that's what I really believe that every student, any faculty member should have the ability to go to the nearest bathroom and have one designed and be available for them no matter what their need. And it's very important. And with the expanded outdoor learning space, all the outdoor learning spaces, we also be fully accessible for youngsters. So this is an area that I know that the people will resonate with the people. It resonated with the people in my former community who felt that community needed to do a better job in treating every employee and every student with dignity. We only have one a fully accessible bathroom for employees. And so I think this is an area that is really vital, that we remember this as we are designing and learning about this space. Anything else you want to add on that?
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Steve. I think, as you talk about those design spaces that are distraction-free or less distracting for students, I would just share that, each day there are many students receiving intervention or enrichment services or targeted speech and language therapy and treatments in spaces that are shared between 4 and 6 adults with multiple groups going on. I was just in a space on Monday where a reading specialist was teaching one group short A, and there was another teacher working on short B in the other corner, which, as you're saying those sounds to students and they're already distracted in a space, it can be really hard to discriminate. And I think, the power of our interventions will be improved when our educators and students are provided better spaces to receive those services. I am hopeful that, these spaces that are purposefully designed to meet the needs of small groups of students or individualized services that students need will just continue to improve the quality that we're able to provide for students.
We've had a project at the middle school working on new HVAC and new FM systems and new lighting. And there was a video that came out, and Kristen Gauthier, who's the principal, I just watched the video this morning, and talked about how the old version of the in-classroom unit ventilators were so distracting to kids. And so the board, to their credit, went to rooftop units that are basically silent for the students in the classroom. So this notion, especially today, we have to work on this distraction frame, right? We have to do everything we can to put everything that we possibly can in favor so kids can learn and reduce these barriers of distractions and less dignity. So I really hope that this is something that people can reflect upon and ask more questions and experiences, because I think this area is ripe for significant change. And so I appreciate that. So thank you. End of the day. So just in the afternoon, just a reminder that this project removes portable classrooms. So all grade levels, all the students will be within, all the teachers will be in, again, by proximity and collaboration. I've had firsthand, as Kathleen spoke, I've observed the dismissal at Wilkins School. It's one of the most extraordinary logistical operations I've ever seen in elementary school, and it will fundamentally change. Because we'd be able to dismiss and gather, as Kathleen said, in two spaces, the NPR room and the gymnasium, which means they're not outside classrooms, which means there can be other things happening in the classrooms. The separate lanes for buses and cars, walkers will be safer in this, and we love walkers, but so, this design will help safety for walkers. And we're going to talk a lot about this in the partnership one, but we'll have facilities, significant high quality facilities available to community members. 10 o'clock on a Tuesday, volleyball or basketball for the community, absolutely you'll have space because we've added space. So the afternoon experience for kids and for teachers will fundamentally change.
Absolutely.
Anything you want to add?
No, I think that captures it.
So let's talk. So that's the student experience. Right, we've increased the school day. It's a calmer day. We have designated space. We've treated all students with dignity, and at the end of the day changes. Let's talk about faculty and staff. And one thing we're going to talk about, and Kathleen mentioned it, right now it's the most competitive environment for teachers I've seen in my 38 years in public ed. In the old days, the teachers who had vast amount of experience were on top scale, would be very difficult to find a job, not anymore. That teachers can move, teachers have choice. So teachers are going to be faced, do they want to work in this environment or they walk in a different environment? So it's the absolute truth right now with teachers. But faculty and staff will have ample parking and easy access through multiple secured entrances. Teachers will arrive and work in spaces that support success, not inhibit it. And one thing that we talked a couple of years ago, we want the building, Victoria members, we want it to be tailwind, not headwind. Do you remember that? We really want the building to support learning, not inhibit it. Special education intervention spaces are situated central to the grade level. So it's designed so the teachers supporting the grade levels will be next to the teachers. That's how we get special ed and regular ed teachers together. It works. If they're next to each other, it just happens. And then music art teachers have designated spaces, so they can actually organize, set up, and plan instruction much differently when you have your room. And we know that makes a difference. Anything about the morning when the teachers arrive?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, heading back to that car line situation in the morning, there'll be better opportunities for staff to feel like they're able to arrive to work, find a parking spot, easily enter the building through multiple entrances. Having the car lanes and the bus loop designed with that additional exit there will hopefully open up some other spaces for staff members to be able to get into the building safely. I think right now, just the way our facilities, the way the facility is functioning, there are challenges our educators face each day as they enter the classroom, especially on a cold day like today when we have older systems and facilities in place. We may enter a room and the heat might have turned off, and now I'm going to troubleshoot that, right in the moment that I'm welcoming kids in the door, because contractually my day starts at 7:30, but we've had to start car drop off at 7:25 because the car line is extending out into the road, and students are at my door at the same moment that I am ready to begin teaching for the day too. So, I'm in a new building, some of those challenges will, go away for teachers. They'll enter the classroom and they won't have to worry about those things. They'll be able to focus more on the students in front of them there too, which they do every day. We have phenomenal educators, but there are barriers that our building presents them each day too.
Mike and I were talking this week, and one of the things he said, is there any way we can get the teacher out of the closet? We have a teacher in a closet, and it doesn't work. It's not that that has to change. We have to provide design spaces for teachers to be successful. Throughout the day, just some things throughout the day. Because of the design and the collaboration and the space, there will be an increased sense of community, especially for the teachers on the board. They will feel a part of the school, and so will the students. The faculty rooms will become more gathering of professional discussions too, because of space and how they're equipped. Again, all fourth grade teachers will part of the school and collaborate as grade level. For the first time, all fourth graders will be in the same proximity. The communication has the opportunity to increase because they'll have some private space for phone and Zoom calls and parent guardian meetings. One of the things that when I walked in tonight, I saw the light on in the construction trailer outside. And in my experience, I was a superintendent in a small district. What happens for families early at the elementary level for the first time, some parents are getting news for the first time about the special needs for their children. It's a very difficult conversation to hear. And when I was interim soup, I told the story about when my son, I got was informed by my son's challenges in receiving education. We really want to have a caring space, a conference room that is respectful to families as they, for some, hear very, very difficult, hard to process things. Right now, they're in a construction trailer outside in the cold. I'm really thinking, you know, and other spaces in the district have, sometimes school counseling has a conference room, the office has a conference room, special ed has a conference room. Because of that, you design the spaces. And it is, and Kathleen describes it to me often, is that we have to juggle to find a meeting space. Sometimes if you have to spend a half hour to find a meeting space. And we do that at AMS too. So with AMS, we'll have more meeting space and more respectful, these very difficult, challenging conversations treat parents with dignity as they hear sometimes difficult news about the most precious cargo in the world. And right now they're hearing the news in a construction trail. I just think that this project it'll be different. Thoughts, questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really important to hear. This morning is an example of that. We had multiple parent meetings happening at the same time, trying to juggle the space of finding appropriate locations, you know, asking questions on the fly. Well, how many people are coming to your meeting? How many people are in your meeting? Let's kind of figure out who can go in this space or that space. And it is a daily occurrence for us as a school community. Our former conference room space is now being utilized as a special education, specialized program space. It's not adequate in size for that specialized program, but it's a space for the program. So we're making that work. And that conference room trailer certainly does not exude the level of care and comfort that I would want for families to be able to receive from an environment when navigating some of those challenging and difficult conversations with our youngest learners. Most recently, this past year, myself and the assistant principal have removed our desks from our classroom, our office spaces in lieu of providing small conference room tables, because we need other spaces where we can meet with groups of teachers or with families that are outside, that are still inside of the building, that allow us to have some of those more sensitive and really important conversations with staff and family. You know, what you noted about the opportunity for increased communication with families, I think our teachers are incredible here and they go above and beyond. A lot of teachers are staying late to make phone calls. We have students in classrooms up until about 3 minutes before their contracted time, because we can't dismiss them to a general location for buses. So students are in spaces as we are calling buses one by one and ultimately dismissing a YMCA program nearly every day between 2:46 and 2:48. Contracted day ends at 2:50. Those teachers don't have a private location without students to pick up their phone and make a phone call to a parent at that time of day. We would build a schedule that allowed many of our teachers to use that time for professional learning, for planning, for preparation, for communication with families in the future. I think in all of our own working environments, I used that word before, the opportunity to be in a space that can be somewhat inspiring when you're collaborating and working on hard projects and tasks. And the work of being an educator is not easy. I think our staff deserve a space where they can meet with their colleagues, talk about curriculum, talk about assessment, talk about students, and really have the opportunity to continue to grow. That's really appropriate and respectful for their professional careers too. I think that's really important.
And I happen to have meetings in Kathleen's office without a desk and with a table, and I appreciate it. But if you know where the administrator office, it's a fishbowl. And we really want private meetings with give parents the respect out of privacy, as opposed to the middle when everybody sometimes if they walk down and they see me, is Steve in trouble? Is Kathleen in trouble? It might say we don't know which, but I think a private meeting space, I think is a standard we can meet in Amherst, New Hampshire. Just the end of the day, and we've talked about some of this. So the media center becomes a learning venue that we can actually have multiple classes, so we can do more collaboratives. We can do some things cross grade level and within grade levels. The technology space provides opportunities for integrated learning. We can utilize the technology space. Kathleen just alluded to this change in dismissal allows for increased collaboration between classroom teachers, interventionists, and special ed teachers. And it's real that a new space people, you know, Kathleen's used the word inspiring a number of times. That's what we want. We want our teachers inspired. We want to attract and retain those inspirational teachers, and a facility that people come in and are in awe of and appreciate, I think is a piece of that. Anything else about the end of the day?
I think it's great.
So just some key points, hopefully to summarize some key points from this last half hour or so. Every single student benefits by the gymnasium, and the community will benefit from the gymnasium because the entire academic schedule changes. It is driven by student need and developmentally appropriate. Fifth grade coming down here is a big thing. It's a big thing for the fifth graders. It's a big thing for AMS. It really does change AMS. Having designated music and art spaces honors the arts, and that slice of creativity and that component, that's important. To value the arts in their own designated space like we do with other things, really important. You know, we really can't much longer just say we can put music on the stage. That really doesn't honor, and so, because for some youngsters, and we heard this, I've heard this, that their reason for coming to school is the art. And if they're doing it on the stage, that just isn't what we need to do. We really want to treat everybody who walks through these doors with dignity. We want to give them the privacy and the respect and dignity to do what they need to do in the privacy and the design space that they need. And we want, there will be professional working and learning spaces and for everyone to experience and please don't underestimate the impact of eliminating the portables and getting everybody together, every student and staff member under this roof. Those are the key components. When I met with Kathleen, those are the ones that the gym, the fifth grade, the music and art, treating every single person with dignity and having a professional work and learning space for every single student, every teacher, every staff member. That's the gig. That's the future of Wilkins. That's what happens. Any other thoughts?
No.
Anybody else? Any concluding thoughts before we open it up for questions? So hopefully we did a decent enough job contrasting current and next. Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, I would just like to say from my perspective and all the time that I've spent on this, and I was involved with this work before I joined the school board. The goal has always been to create an environment where educators can teach to the best of their abilities and students can learn to the best of theirs. So I think what, you know, Kathleen and Steve sort of explained tonight, and we kind of jumped in the middle of some things. If you don't have a student in the school, some of it may not have resonated as much as if you do already. But right now, our building hinders those things. It hinders teachers from doing their best work and students from learning there. So that's one of the problems that we're trying to solve for. And we're bringing back this plan for a second year because we believe that it's the most straightforward sort of classic design that allows us to do that in a way that the community responded very positively to last year. And so if we can keep sharing the experience that we believe this building will have and informing you of the current challenges, that's what we're here to do.
I can't add anything better than that.
Yeah.
So before we open it up for questions, in 2 weeks from today, we're going to talk about partnerships, how it supports the town, what's the benefit for people who don't have youngsters, for example, in it. And then on the 29th, as I said, we're going to talk about the construction piece at 5:30 here, same bat time, same bat channel. And happy to open up for any questions about the student experience, staff experience currently, please.
Can you speak to how the new building would make the school safer?
The 29th we can't talk about that.
Okay. I thought-
I'm sorry.
Construction, that says construction. I wanna know right now what's
There we go.
unsafe and how you're gonna make it
Sorry, my
safer.
wise guy.
Sure. One of the monikers and one of what you're trying to do is controlled access. And so every door will be controlled access, and also bringing the portables are gone. So there won't be unfettered access to 4 classrooms. They will always have to go through them. So fundamentally, it's a one campus, closed campus controlled access with the portal entry where you come in and you see someone, then you get buzzed in. So not like here where there is an airlock system, but there's not a greeting from someone to assess and to find out. So the entry is much more controlled access. The building will have all the appropriate safety measures. So everything is updated to current state of the state, but fundamentally the big things are controlled access, portables gone. And when you come in, you are greeted in, the portal by a human being and to be assessed, and then as opposed to here where you cross the school and you can go left, right, and middle. So it's a fundamental design change to be upgraded.
And if you wanted an example of the secure portal that Steve just mentioned, Sauhegan recently did a project to make a secure front entrance there, which was part of the facilities committee work and recommendations in prior years. So that's a good example. If you want to go visit, check it out, at their main entrance there. They have a secure vestibule now with a window and
Yeah,
that controlled access.
yeah, I have my own thoughts on, we have one controlled access and two not, but we're getting there.
Agreed. There's still work to be done, but
Gene
that's a
heard
good
me
example.
say, that's a principal's nightmare, you know, so he, the way it's designed at times and go in there, it
Depends on what you
was.
think the front door is.
Right,
but
right.
yeah,
That's true.
yeah.
And, I heard some say asbestos and there's some truth to that. That's a safety and a wellness concern. And, you know, our buildings have it. And we'll eventually abate it, you know, depending on how it goes, but you don't have to go through that abatement process when you build a new building and renovate portions of it. So that is a big one. And, you know, at the end of the day, some of the things that I think about is we have infrastructure issues and we have a capital improvements plan that will be adjusted depending on the outcome of this vote. It's just, that's kind of where we're at. We are planning for this, but we're also planning for life if it doesn't happen, because things need to happen. And we will update the community on the needs and the timeline of that. Roger is an incredible planner. Roger Preston, our, facilities, very detail oriented. But there is a cost to that. But I will tell you that we will continue to work to make our buildings safe and secure and hardened and healthy for kids, and whether we have this project or we don't, right? And that will continue to happen. But for me, one of the things that I think a little bit about is the cost of ignoring it. It's not just infrastructure. It's about the educational experience that kids are getting. And I talked to Steve, we were talking a little about this, and some people have heard me say this, like, oh, good teachers can teach anywhere. Great teachers can teach anywhere, right? Yes. But you can also, if you're in an environment that allows you to, create the lessons because you have the space, because you have the facilities, because you have the intervention spaces, because you have the ability, that enhances what the experience and the learning that kids get. And for me, when you have spaces that are noisy, that are crowded, that are inaccessible to that impacts things. And, for me, I every time I come here, I go check on my favorite, least favorite space. And it's, if you've ever gone there, there's 3 guidance counselors who sit at desks that look like they're from, BAE from 1965, and they're on top of each other. And Kathleen said, good thing they get along, because and they've worked there for years in that manner. And I'm just like, well, you don't have to. Well, this is when I came to Amherst. I grew up in Townsend, Massachusetts, and we came here, and I used to play in the soccer tournaments on the front of Sauhegan in the Grand. I'm like, this place is rich. You know what I mean? And you come here and Sauhegan was developed and built in the 90s, and I'll age myself. I was about in high school almost when Sauhegan was built and went through there. And that was dubbed the 8th wonder of the world. And then, but when you come here as an adult and this is a get-to place, and I told my parents I wanted to work here, and I interviewed at Sauhegan on 3 different occasions to work here, because you want to work in Amherst. But the first time I walked through Amherst Middle, I'm like, this isn't that good. Then you walk through Wilkins. For a long time, I thought Clark was out back, right? Because I came in COVID, I didn't get the tour. I thought Clark was in the back for the first 6 months. And then you walk through Wilkins and you're like, this can't be the elementary school. Yeah. This can't be the elementary school in Amherst, New Hampshire. And I came back, as I was thinking about being the superintendent, and I'm like really getting into it, right? And I see some of these spaces. And I'm like, I just don't understand it, and I said to somebody, in a way that a town that so graciously funds public education through teacher contracts, through operating budgets, it didn't match, it didn't match. So we have to do something. And I appreciate years of work that went into this. I tell Shannon quite a bit, like years of work of different committees, JFAC committees, you know, district-wide JFAC committees. But for us, there is an urgency because the kids deserve the experience. And then I will talk a little bit about from the adult, the competitiveness of hiring is only going to increase. And if we want to continue to fill our buildings up with the quality of educators we want and put them in front of kids, it does matter to educators where they work, what type of space they work in, just as much as salary and who they get to work with. I can flat out tell you that, you know, I've been doing this. This is my life's work. Superintendents, you know, we lament. You know, I have a buddy who is the headmaster of Pinkerton. They are constantly upgrading their building so they can go out as part of a recruitment tool for kids and adults as part of their plan. So we'll continue to work on that. I just wanted to share that piece with it, and we'll open up for more questions.
In the past, we've talked in the community about the test scores that happen here at the Amherst School District and then that happen at the Mount Vernon School District. And I know in the past when we've talked, we discussed how a lot of our professional development is done together. And I was just wondering if you could maybe speak to the difference of the facilities in those two environments.
It is different environments. It's two grade levels. I mean, two classrooms per grade level. Class size is a little bit smaller than Amherst. So it's a school of 230 compared to a school of, you know, 700-ish. So there is a different structure to it. So
Can
yes.
you talk about how the school building in Mount Vernon is different from the school building at Wilkins? Like the actual facility and its updates?
Maybe the space for interventionists and things like that, that would actually be moving our test scores.
Yeah, so they have a reading specialist and a math specialist. The Mount Vernon Village School is built more like a residential location than it is, you know, a commercial industrial like this place. The intervention spaces are different. There's some ratios that are different, but not totally far off. But yes, I've never seen anything like the intervention space at Wilkins School. I never have. When I walked in and saw those, you know, non-permanent semi-dividers, which, right, we had one that, I mean, it is a very, very difficult environment for those kids who need extra support to get the intervention in a hugely distractible space. We are looking at scores, and we also see some, you know, some great increases at Wilkins, but we think we can do better. Anything else you want to talk about the Wilkins school versus that
Yeah,
environment?
I can't speak specifically to Mount Vernon School, but I can, you know, add to the challenge within those intervention spaces, right? So when we're providing that targeted instruction for students and with reading specialists, it really is challenging for that small group to be as impactful as we would like it to be for students with the distracting environment around them. I do believe that the smaller group spaces and that opportunity for those spaces to be closer to classroom teachers would provide greater ease of access to the intervention for students, increased collaboration amongst that interventionist and classroom teacher, definitely having the opportunity for teachers to see each other teach in action a little bit more. Right now in that model with the portables, those fourth grade teachers are really isolated. There'll be times where they, you know, first grade colleagues will say, I haven't seen you in weeks, when they're heading down the hallway maybe to get to the office. And those teachers have limited opportunities to, you know, walk by a classroom and see something happening in a way that then provokes a conversation with their colleague about an instructional practice or something great happening with students that they could potentially learn from in the moment. Because it is about that, you know, structured PD, but it's also about the community environment the educators are in to be able to see and experience and build relationships to grow professionally on their own too. And I think, you know, everyone being together in a building that's designed for that will help to improve it.
And I'll add, we're always going to attract people moving into town with students at all different, you know, levels and needs. Because, you know, it is Amherst, it is a premier, SAU 39 is a premier school district. They know we have talented instructors. They're going to want to move to towns where they can get the instruction and education that they want. That's a fact. That's not gonna change. We're always gonna have 14 to 20% of our students who are gonna need services on 504s or IEPs. We're always gonna need them intervention spaces. We do have a plan and a process outlined in our framework that we're working to, improve our tier 1 instructions, but the intervention spaces are the tier 2 and tier 3 level that you're always going to need them. You're always gonna have to have them, and I think that is it's a blessing and a curse when you have the #1 town in Forbes magazine in New Hampshire as considered the most affluent town, right? When people came out, I'm like, oh, that's great. That came out, and people are gonna be attracted to that. They're gonna be attracted to Mount Vernon when they have, the rankings that they have, and they're gonna move, and we have growth happening there. So I don't think the growth in SAU 39 is gonna slow down. And so we just gotta plan for it accordingly and do the best with what we have and develop plans both academically and in regards to facilities to manage that. And I appreciate, the work and the questions that are going into it.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback on to answer your question a little bit, what has always struck me in terms of the difference between the buildings specifically in Mount Vernon and Amherst from a community and parent perspective, right? It's not apples to apples, as Mike said, or Steve said, the student population is much smaller there. But with their student population and their classroom space and their teachers, they have appropriately sized classrooms, which is something that the Amherst School District has been striving and working for years, to get our class size ratios where we want them to be, where we think it's optimal for educators and for students. They have much easier access to the outdoors there from their classrooms. They have a gym there. So I think a lot of the features of the plan, the proposal this year are very similar to some of those features that they have in Mount Vernon, but on a larger scale that suits our student population. Right now, our building, and actually since this building was constructed in 1967, it has never been appropriately sized for the student population that we have. This building was built in 1967. A few short years later, we needed a 14 classroom addition, right? From the jump, we haven't had the space we needed for the current population. I'm not talking about, projecting for some massive explosion of students, which has happened in the past and was augmented with a number of portables, not just the 4 that have been hanging out back for, a couple decades now. But there were more when our student population was larger. So I hope that answers your question a little bit. It's a little all over the place there, but I just wanted to add that.
Other questions? We want to be respectful of the time, but we've got a little bit more time. Jeannie, please.
I don't know if you want to talk about this, but originally Clark was included in this whole project. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about what the future of Clark is.
For now, it's status quo. Clark will still be used for the purposes that we have it for now, is that pre-K and kindergarten classroom. But one of the things that I've talked about a lot with this is a lot of facility work in general. There's a lot of money to be spent on the buildings in this town across all districts. And even if you can throw in Mount Vernon, they will need stuff eventually as well, but that obviously doesn't impact Amherst taxpayers. But between our 3 buildings in Souhegan, there's X amount of dollars out there, tens of millions that are going to need to be done. Having this building in place provides sort of that anchor, if you will, takes care of probably our biggest need. AMS is up there as well, but consolidating 1 through 5 here allows us to be able to creatively and with a little bit more plan for those other facility upgrades. And that includes Clark. Clark will need work, whether it's roofing, if it's systems. I mean, that building is 1937, I think it was. So it's 85 years old, 84 years old. So it's gonna need work, and we've done some piecemeal things. We've also held off on some things. Broken vinyl siding, for instance, we said we're not gonna worry about that while we're piecing together other plans. So there will be work that will need to be done there, but ideally this building gets situated, takes care of 1 through 5, and it allows us to go and attack Clark, AMS, and then tangentially Souhegan as well, because that's obviously gonna impact taxpayers. But we'll still use the building and then we'll just start to come up with that. We have capital needs plans. We know what needs to be done there, but it allows us to focus on how we want to fund those.
Yeah, just to kind of follow up, Tom, if you don't mind, Clark was part of the original plan or one of the plans that came out a few years ago. And I don't want to speak for Tom, but I think Tom liked that plan. I like that plan. It provided a full K to 5 solution. But we want to be responsive to what we hear from our community. That was not a plan that was well received. We polled the community. There was concern for, the Clark School. A lot of folks felt strongly that they wanted it to remain a school, that they wanted another project to be smaller in scope and size. So in doing that work and refining that work, and Kathleen was a huge part of working with our architects to develop, the appropriate spaces. We pulled pre-K and K from that plan to remain at the Clark School, but not to be forgotten. Right, the Clark School has a capital needs assessment plan that we will continue to fund through our capital needs or through our capital reserve fund, which you folks are used to seeing on the ballot every year. There's no plans for that to go away, but it will be a phased upgrades and updates at Clark School.
Thank you.
Great question. Thank you. Please.
Yeah, a couple things. One's a little bit off target, but it's sort of what Mike was talking about, is whenever, we get together as a group, I always think public hearing and then the deliberative session of that process to get this thing kicked off and to get those naysayers to at least, how do we increase the percentage? It was what, 57% last year?
54.
54. How do you get that up to 60 to get the bond, approved? How do we get more votes? How do we get the naysayers to maybe turn around?
Yeah, well, so our role really is to inform, right? So as a board, we have, we've worked hard to analyze the challenges, to listen to our SAU administration and leadership, and then to put forward a plan for the community to decide on. So at this point, I would say, certainly go share with your friends and neighbors when these events are occurring. Have them email us. We're at asb@sau39.org. There are questions. Come to nights like this, because we really want to share all of the important information, and answer questions. And if you have a question that we don't have an answer for, then that's good for us to hear it so that we can go and find that information.
Thanks. And I have one other question too. I was at the Board of Selectmen meeting a couple of weeks ago, whenever they talked about bringing a gas pipeline in from Milford, bring it down Amherst Street, then down here. Did you get any feedback from the Board of Selectmen about that meeting, or
I love Natch Gas.
pardon?
Love Natch Gas. If it's gonna be Natch Gas, love Natch Gas.
Well, I was there and they weren't too receptive to it. There was, it really is, because I think it's a great idea, because it's just another option for the heating. I wouldn't give up on it if that's what your desires are, but I just looked at the faces of the Board of Selectmen, and you can tell that they bottom line said, hey, we'll wait. If the bond passes, then we'll take it up again and we'll really consider it. But right now, it was sort of like a what if to them.
I think Roger was connected to it somehow, so they might have some communication with Roger.
And do you know if the cost, do you know what the cost was, like 1.5 or 1.2 million?
On the natural gas. Yeah.
Just roughly.
Yeah, I don't have.
Well,
that in front
okay,
of me.
1.8?
Yeah.
Oh, yikes, I didn't think it was that high. But is any of that cost shared with the citizens that want to hook up to it?
I think
think
it's
they-
very.
Yeah, I think I've seen in past towns where you can pay for a connection to that. I know, my dad is involved in this stuff. They did water lines in Epping for development, and if you were on well water, you can pay for the hookup from the water line to your house. So you can pay for that piece. And I assume
But
it's similar to natural gas.
Yeah.
We just went through this in South Amherst, and the natural gas company paid for it because they make money off it.
Mhm. Great.
Yeah. I just thought it was a great idea, because it's another option for,
We did too when we heard about it.
Great.
I wouldn't give up on it. I recommend not to give up on that. But Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Please.
More of a comment. I've listened to a lot of presentations on this project and tonight I definitely heard a different spin on how you guys are presenting this information. And I think the piece about the dignity for students and for the teachers who are involved is a really powerful message. And I really hope you guys consider bringing that to the deliberative session because I think not only I think this is a fiscally responsible thing to do for the long term of the town, but the amount of pride that we should have in where we choose to raise our kids and who is educating our children is a message that I think can take some people and really bang the drum on why this project is needed because it's important. So just more feedback.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
From here, as Shannon, Tom, Kathleen, Mike, me, anybody, we will answer any question. We'll meet anytime. We'll tour. I mean, there's been tours. We'll tour this place. Please reach out. Our goal is to make sure every community member has the information they need to make the informed decision. 2 weeks, we'll talk partnerships. 3 weeks, we'll talk construction safety. There's some other stuff coming. You'll see more information coming, but thank you. We had about 10, 15 or so online.
Yeah,
Whatever.
so
So,
it was nice.
so appreciate it. And thank you for coming out the cold night. And
And
thank you to
encourage
everybody.
people to come listen when there's some listening sessions and there'll be some conversations happening around the project. There'll be conversations happening around some long-term planning in regards to the framework for success. Encourage people to come attend and learn and be informed. And, we just appreciate the partnership and you guys all coming out tonight. And I've seen some of your faces for the last 4 or 5 years around these things. So I really do appreciate that. And for those who are new coming, thanks for coming to learn and hear us out. So we thank you and have a good night, everybody.
We'll be seeing you in 2 weeks.